Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Another good topic for you today, and we probably all have an answer. Let's do it. What's the creepiest thing that has happened to you this year? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. A few weeks ago, I heard a commotion in the halls of our apartment building. All of the lights out there were out due to an electrical fault. The apartments themselves were fine. We were due an electrician to fix them, so I figured it was just him. Then there was a knock on my door. Odd, I had COVID, so I was slow to answer it. By the time I did, the guy had moved away from the door. The light from my doorway, coupled with the pitch-black hall, meant that I could only see a shadowy figure standing in the interior fire door doorway about a meter away from me. "Don't worry, mate, found it," he said. Given I was waiting on the electrician, I just put two and two together and said, okay. A few hours later, via our WhatsApp chat, I'm English and it's a 10-person block, so super friendly little community. Somebody advised we'd had a break-in. They forced the front door, and I can only imagine thought they were breaking into commercial units, not apartments. There were 3 guys with crowbars, all wearing balaclavas. I literally spoke to one of them with my door wide open, a meter away, sick and tired, with my wife indoors. I dodged an effing bullet. Maybe they were intending to rush whoever answered, as they knocked on my elderly neighbor's door too, who was also slow to answer. I'm 6'5" and broad, so perhaps I scared them off despite my state. Who knows? I live in Southeast Asia, and my neighbors are fishermen, and every night they would go out to the sea to catch fish. These guys don't usually sell the fish they caught unless they're big. The small ones they caught, they would share it with other neighbors. And they've been giving us a lot, so I thought maybe I could repay them by helping them next time. I asked them if I could come with them and help them. They said yes. When we got to the sea, we went underwater with a huge net and a flashlight to attract small squid. I don't know what you call them in English. They weren't exactly squids, but they were similar to squids. So anyway, almost 3 hours had passed. It was very cold and my head was hurting as we'd been going up and down from the water. Local fishermen in my country don't use oxygen when going underwater. After some time, when we were done, we went up and started folding the net, and that was the time I heard chicken noises, like a few chickens crowing close to us. I looked around, but I didn't see any chickens. Our boat was small and could only fit 4 people. We were also far from land. I thought maybe it was just in my head, so I asked the other guys and they said they heard it too, and it happens sometimes. We just simply ignore it. I was very creeped out since I've been down that dark water. Since that day, I don't go fishing at night anymore. I had to drive back to work one night because I forgot some paperwork in my office. It was a really foggy night and kind of creepy because it was a week or so before Halloween. When I was leaving the parking lot, an ostrich crossed the road in front of me. Seriously, I thought I was losing my mind. Did I really see that? I even got out of my car and I saw it running down the road. It was so creepy. A few weeks ago, on a Saturday night, I had a dream about myself and 2 friends I've known for over 40 years. One of them, Eric, I'm still in contact with. The other, Bob, not really. Had a bit of a falling out years ago. In the dream, we were just kind of hanging out like we did years ago. Nothing special. The next day, Sunday afternoon, I get a phone call from Eric, letting me know Bob had died early Sunday morning. This honestly creeped me out when this happened until I found out what was really going on. I was settling on my bed playing video games one night and all the lights were off, so I couldn't really see anything other than near the TV. My cat was playing with a bag of treats, trying to get them to open, and for no reason he just hisses really loud and is staring at something under my boyfriend's desk. I stared for a minute, trying to figure out what it was, and even used my phone to shine a light to look, and there was nothing. So I was getting creeped out because he was just staring at something and growling. So I went to go look, and he was just looking at his reflection from the side of my boyfriend's PC. I was so scared over nothing. Now don't pretend like it wasn't intentional. Cats knew exactly what they were doing, and that cat was just trying to keep you up. I love cats. Needs a little context. So I work night shift in a high school as a maintenance, meaning I clean rooms, fix stuff, etc. At night, you're alone 95% of the time. The school I work in has real long straight hallways. Sometimes I look down the hallway and think I see someone darting around the corner when no one really is. Either that, or hear footsteps in the hallway when in a room when no one is really there. My dog had been on edge pretty much all day. Nothing terrible, but definitely noticeable. Sitting in the front room and her hackles shot straight up and she low growled like I've never heard her before. In that exact moment, the back door swings wildly open. Now, I'm not a badass or anything remotely like it, but my fight or flight is assuredly fight. I was over the chair and ready to defend my wife and kid, but nothing was there. Not windy, house hadn't shifted, nothing reasonably could have opened that door in such a manner. Checked the backyard, gates were locked, nothing out of the ordinary. It was wild. I live on the top 2 floors of an 8-floor building and have 2 balconies which the apartment next to me has limited access to. Around 3 a.m. one night, I woke up to my dog barking, which she almost never does. I tried to calm her down, but she instead led me to the top balcony door and signaled that she wanted out. I let her out there and she quickly investigated the area before rushing back inside and heading downstairs. At this point, I realized that she thought there was an intruder. I grabbed my bat and followed her downstairs. She quickly searched downstairs and then headed to the lower balcony door. I looked out the glass door and saw a dark silhouette standing completely still. My dog saw it too and started barking at it. I walked to the balcony light switch and flipped it on to illuminate the balcony. By the time I looked back, the balcony was empty. I later found out that my neighbors were out of town that night. There's no way for someone to get onto that balcony without going through my apartment or my neighbor's apartment. I have no idea what I saw, but since my dog saw it too, it was probably real. I work in a tuberculosis sanitarium turned office space, but they didn't do a very good job of disguising that it used to be a hospital. Came into work before anyone else and heard a woman do a short cough followed by a throat clearing. Thoroughly searched my floor for signs of other people. No one but me around. Just my car and the maintenance guy's truck in the parking lot, and they were outside at the time. I'm not a big believer in the paranormal, but this made me second guess myself. Driving home late at night on a road that trucks don't use much. I was 10 miles from town where I lived, but there was absolutely nothing between where I was and town. I saw a body laying in the road. There was no other traffic. I was about to stop when a semi came from the other direction. It was as if it materialized out of nowhere. It didn't slow down, but ran right over the body. The 2-liter pop bottles flew out of the clothing, and then I saw 2 men in the bar ditch. They were laying in wait to do whatever they were going to do to whoever stopped. If the truck has not materialized out of nowhere, I'd probably be dead. I woke up but was still semi-asleep. I'd been dreaming, and the dream was still fresh in my mind. The kind of state where it feels like you could fall asleep and go back into it. My girlfriend likes to sleep with a blanket covering the top of her head, and when I woke up, I was looking right at it, inches away from my eyes. There was a small spider-like thing crawling on the blanket, but it wasn't a spider. It was translucent to the point where I could barely see it, and it had way more than 8 legs. It seemed to notice I'd woken up and scurried to a darker patch on the blanket. The blanket has small spots, as it's designed, so there was one every few inches. It settled into the dark spot, and I could barely see it. I leaned over to grab my phone to get a picture of it, and took my eyes off of it for the briefest of microseconds. When I looked back, it was gone. I was fully awake at this point, and I felt silly for thinking it would still be there, honestly. Was in the summer, and I was hanging laundry out to dry. We have 5 outdoor cats. Like usual, they followed me, but they started acting different. Fur raised, hissing, and running up the tree line in that fashion. I ignored at first till I realized there was no bird sounds. Everything was pin-drop silent. I walked past the line and peered into the woods. The shadow of a tall individual tucked behind a group of pines. Every hair on my body stood up. The neighbors' dogs were all staring with their fur raised in the woods. Normally they bark at anything, but they were quiet. I called one's name, but his focus never changed. Later that night, my husband jumped up from bed and said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "I don't hear anything." He said, "Neither do I." I quickly told him what I saw earlier in the day. He told me not to follow him. He got his brother, and they went out into the dark. About 30 minutes later, they came back and said they didn't see or hear anything, but could tell something was off. Next day I went out, and near the clothesline were shoe tracks in the moss. They looked like dress shoe prints, like the kind a man would wear to church, but the steps looked burned into the moss, singed like. Told a coworker about it, and she joked, "Must be a devil, because we don't live that far from the devil's tramping grounds here in North Carolina." Weirdest and creepiest feeling I've experienced while living out here. Obviously, I'm glad that your husband and his brother came back inside, but if this was the start of a horror movie, and if you're going to be the final girl, they're dead, and it would have been wild. Not in real life, in a movie. I'm glad they're okay. This is something that happened to my friend this year. He was house sitting for his rich uncle, big mansion on a golf course in a gated community. He was sleeping in the master bedroom and wakes up in the middle of the night to see someone standing in the corner of the room. He thinks, 1, it's a bad dream. 2, he's just seeing unfamiliar shadows in a new environment. 3, he's not wearing his glasses and his mind is playing tricks on him. He turns over and goes back to sleep. He wakes up in the morning to find the house completely ransacked. Apparently, one of his cousin's friends knew the family was out of town and decided to rob them, completely trashed the place. Girl was caught on camera and arrested. Crazy girl's father goes and bails her out of jail. On the drive home, she grabs the wheel of the car from her dad and crashes the car, killing her dad. She's in jail now. Should probably be in a psych ward. Not this year, but a couple of years ago, me and my other brothers had come home from a meeting at school or something related to it. My older was the first to enter the house. Our house is small, and there's a short hallway that connects to all our doors. On the end of the hallway to the right, my older brother said he saw a red-sleeved hand grab the door handle and close it. Creepiest thing is, nobody else was home. It was just us 3. So he checked to the bathroom to find nobody. The only way out was the door or the small window that only a child could fit through, but that was broken shut, so it was impossible. Zero idea what my older brother saw. Think it was a ghost, plus if it was a prank, then none of us owned any red jackets or any red clothes. In uni, I like to go for walks around campus late at night, either just walking around the fountains and parks we had there, or even playing Pokemon Go. I get bored sometimes, even on walks meant to disrupt the boredom, alright? At one end of campus, there's a decently sized football field with those huge spotlights. It was a little bit disconnected from the main cluster of campus buildings, so the only real lighting on the path was from the mentioned field lights. I had walked most of the campus already, but not out to the field. It was getting close to 11:30 p.m. This was come into play soon. In early April, so the snow was mostly gone, and I could walk without freezing my ass off. Walking down the path to the field, it was fine until I got up to the field. The path continued past it, but I didn't really want to go much further since it seemed to be empty of land after that. Before I had a chance to turn around, all of the lights on the field simultaneously went out, right as the bell tower in the main campus building did the chimes for when it's 1:30. I swear to God, as the bells rung, I heard distinct chuckling by the gate to the field less than 100 feet away from me. I can only describe it as the laugh of the Happy Mask salesman from Majora's Mask. That's what I heard in near pitch black, at the ass crack of night, on the farthest end of campus where the people were scarcely at. After about half a second, my brain pressed its F that button, and I bolted right back down the path toward campus. I didn't hear anyone or footsteps following me, but I wasn't going to stop until I got to my dorm building, and I didn't. Thankfully, there wasn't any RAs or anyone at the desk, otherwise I would have had to explain that I nearly got my soul eaten while out on a midnight stroll. Well, I mean, if you heard something or saw something, that's one thing, but the lights, very easily explained. Most of the time, schools are just set on a timer, and the lights are going to turn off at a certain time, so that seems to make the most sense. Now, if there was a strange person cackling in the dark, and that's your choice of walking, so I probably would have ran back too. Just being honest. Background information. My sister was at a sleepover and called my dad to pick her up earlier than agreed. The friend's house was in another town, so my dad had to drive through a bit of countryside to get to her. My dad had a really modern car, and the side mirrors have small sensors in them that activate a small light for maybe 2 seconds whenever something gets very close to the car. So, my dad was driving to this other town, and it's deep into the night. No moon, no stars, just pure blackness. He's alone on the road, and while he's driving, the small sensor in the left mirror suddenly lights up. So my dad thinks a car wants to pass him, but there's no one behind or beside him. My dad thought this was odd, so after a while he turned around and checked to see if the light would light up again, and it did, in the exact same spot, but on the right mirror. After he had come home with my sister, he told me the story, so we drove back to the spot to check if the sensor would light up again, and it sadly didn't. We stopped the car on the side and went out, but there was nothing on the street that could have activated the sensor, and the road was pretty wide too. It was actually really effing quiet outside, and it felt wrong to stand in that spot where the sensor had lit up. My father isn't the type of guy to make up such stories, and he never was really into this whole paranormal activity stuff either, so I believe every word he said.